Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. On Tuesday, November 25th, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula announced that its fighters and allied tribesmen in Rada'a city and surrounding villages in Al-Baida carried out 6 attacks against Houthis over the weekend. They posted on Twitter saying that they targeted a Houthi vehicle in the Hamat Banai Sarar village of Rada'a earlier that day and killed all members on board. In Pakistan, at least 20 militants were killed and 8 others were injured in airstrikes in North Waziristan. Kenyan soldiers killed 49 al-Shabaab fighters, including 5 commanders, in intensified airstrikes in southern Somalia. Then, Wednesday, November 26th, troops loyal to Libya's government took control of the strategic western town of Kekla after over 40 days of clashes with militias there, and put Kekla under the command of the army. At least 95 people were killed in Syrian regime airstrikes on the Islamic State group's self-proclaimed capital of Raqqa. The Iraqi army and Kurdish Peshmerga forces, backed by the coalition air force, repelled a major attack by the Islamic State on the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk, in the interest of controlling the oil sites. Then on Thursday, November 27th, a 12-year-old boy and a 55-year-old woman were killed by shelling in the eastern Ukrainian separatist stronghold of Donetsk, despite a September 5th ceasefire deal. According to UN data, an average of 13 soldiers, rebels, and civilians have died every day since a formal ceasefire was agreed by Ukraine, Russia, and the rebels, with Ukrainian government forces and the separatists accusing each other of violating the terms of the truce. According to the TASS news agency, the Moscow Institute of Thermal Technology, makers of the Topol, Yars, and Bulava missiles, is designing a next-generation missile launching train, bringing back iconic Soviet-era nuclear missile trains as Moscow pumps money into a complete overhaul of its aging nuclear arsenal. On Friday, November 28th, more than 100 people have been killed over several days of fighting between rival groups of an Arab tribe in Sudan's West Kordofan state. At least 120 people were killed and 270 others wounded when 2 suicide bombers blew themselves up and gunmen opened fire during weekly prayers at the Grand Mosque in Kano, the biggest city in the north of the country, which is predominantly Muslim, just as Friday prayers had started. The Russian Navy successfully test-fired a new intercontinental ballistic missile for a second time in as many months, proving its reliability. The Alexander Nevsky nuclear submarine fired a Bulava missile from an underwater position in the Barents Sea. The missile's warheads reached designated targets at a testing range in Russia's far eastern Kamchatka Peninsula. Taliban insurgents struck targets across Afghanistan on Friday, killing at least 6 people and wounding scores more, extending a string of attacks in recent weeks that have put Afghans on edge, 2 months into the term of the new U.S.-backed government. The assault exemplifies how the Taliban is trying to seize advantage of a military landscape in which most Americans and international forces have stopped combat operations and are preparing to withdraw by the end of the year. Heavy fighting between government and rebel forces broke out in South Sudan's Fangak County, Jonglei State, late Friday, with both sides using heavy artilleries. Then on Saturday, November 29th, the Islamic State group launched an attack on the Syrian border town of Kobani from Turkey. One of the suicide attacks involved a bomb-loaded vehicle that detonated on the Syrian side of the border. Heavy fighting also took place southwest of the town, where the Islamic State group brought in tanks to reinforce their fighters. Islamic State group fighters have taken positions in the grain silos on the Turkish side of the border, and from there are launching attacks toward the border crossing point, while the U.S.-led coalition launched an airstrike Saturday morning on the eastern side of the town. It is now clear that Turkey is cooperating with the Islamic State. Suspected Boko Haram militants who arrived on motorcycles throwing bombs raided a mostly Christian town in Nigeria's northeast after nightfall on Saturday. Residents said scores of people had been killed in the town of Shani, but a police source said they had been unable to verify the death toll as communications to the town had been largely cut off. When you hear me talk about the Houthi, and when you hear me talk about Hezbollah, I'm truly talking about Iran. The Houthi are Iran's Shiite proxy to take over Yemen, and Hezbollah is Iran's Shiite proxy to take over Lebanon. Simple as that. And Obama is doing everything to help Iran, all to the demise of Israel, including helping Iran to obtain nuclear weaponry. In Libya, the U.S. military presence there only serves to threaten U.S. allies while empowering al-Qaeda and its associates. Last Tuesday, November 25th, they postponed the talks about Iran and their interest in obtaining nuclear power for another 7 months. Personally, I don't see that as news. It's just business as usual, the way it's been going since day one with this issue. Iran will have nuclear capabilities before the end of 2015, and no one will do anything about it. No one, that is, but Elohim. This week has brought us news of wars exploding all over the Middle East surrounding Israel. Wars in at least a dozen countries: Yemen, Pakistan, Kenya, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Ukraine, Russia, Sudan, Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Turkey. Just like last week, and just like next week, I'm sure. The only difference each week is that these wars continue to escalate and become more intense. Every week we hear the names of places most of us have never heard of before. The names of armies most of us have no knowledge of. To many of us, it all seems so foreign and distant, and yet it is painting a very personal picture for each one of us. It's a painting. It is painting the picture of a prophecy that was given to us by our Creator more than 2,000 years ago. A prophecy that reveals the way His plan will unfold during the last hours on earth before His Son, Yahshua, returns to right all the many wrongs that Satan has built throughout the history of mankind. These reports are the most important news reports that can be delivered, and almost no one is delivering any of them. Almost no one thinks these things are as important as the current events of the personal lives of entertainment industry celebrities, or as beneficial to the public's consciousness as is the latest pharmaceutical drug being offered in the commercial marketplace. I hope and I pray, my friends, that these newscasts open people's eyes to the truth of the Father's Word. Abba willing, I'll see you here next week. Until then, stay safe. Shalom, my friends.
Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.